All right, this video is going to go along with 965 talking about diesel exhaust fluid. So really in the task sheet, it's mostly looking up stuff in all data. So think of like probably anything 2016 or later, Duramax, F250, Power Stroke, or Dodge if that's your thing. But pretty much any of the newer diesel vehicles are going to require exhaust fluid. It's not an option. You got to run it in those trucks. Even some of our cars, the Chevy Cruze had a small diesel engine in it. You had to put DEF in those. I believe the Volkswagen diesels, all that stuff. Pretty much anything sold in the United States to hit emissions numbers has to have exhaust fluid. If you run low, if you don't put it in, if you ignore all the warnings, those vehicles will speed limit you all the way down to like 4 or 5 miles an hour, so you can't drive the vehicle at all. And when those codes set, they're called latched codes. You can't just go in with a scanner and clear them out. The only way to get those codes out of there is for the vehicle to self-test, have a passing result, and then it will erase those codes and get rid of the speed limit. So it can be quite a process sometimes to get these things to run these tests, especially when these things were first brand new in around 2015 or so, something like that. When we first started seeing this stuff, it was such a headache trying to get these things straightened out. They're a little bit better now than they were then, but they still can be pretty tricky. Like I said, most of that sheet is kind of like a little bit of all data research. It talks about specific gravity of diesel exhaust fluid. So if our fluid is diluted, it's got too much water in it, it's just not good fluid or whatever, we'll get some kind of performance codes, low efficiency kind of codes like that. And what you'll need to do is grab a sample of your exhaust fluid and use a refractometer and look for what's called a specific gravity. That's how we test this fluid. You may have heard or seen this before. We use a refractometer. Now this refractometer, like I said, you may have seen it a couple of times. This will do antifreeze, battery acid, and diesel exhaust fluid. And it all works the same way. I don't have any DEF handy, so we're going to just use battery acid since I have some sitting right here. But all we do on this tool, it's a little window that flips up. You're gonna put just like 1 or 2 little drops on the screen right here. You're gonna flip this back down, kind of give it a little wiggle. You wanna make sure that our fluid covers up the whole thing. And then you're going to put this up to your eye, kind of up to a light, and there's a scale in there. And you kind of read the scale. So I'm going to put a drop on here and see what it looks like. So these kits come with a little dropper. I've got some of our electrolyte out of our battery in there. So we're just going to put just a couple little drops on there. It's really all we need. Just a couple little drops. Put that back down. Actually may need just a little bit more. So we got kind of full coverage there. Hold this up to your eye. Most of these will have some kind of focus on the end. You can turn it to focus the scale. This guy right here on the end, turn that to focus it. So this being battery acid, we're way down into the recharge. So when you look at this scale, the top part's going to be blue and the bottom part's going to be white. And wherever that break in color is, that's where you read your scale. So it's pretty simple. This one has a scale for battery, one for antifreeze, and then the top right it's got one for diesel exhaust fluid. Another name and what is actually on the scale on this thing is called urea. That's what diesel exhaust fluid is. It's called urea. So if you hear that term, that's what they're talking about. It's got a lot of water in it and like some ammonia and stuff. honestly, it smells like cat pee. It's not a pleasant smell, and it's really weird fluid. It's clear, but when it hits the floor, when it dries, it crystallizes. It dries up real weird. But you want to be kind of careful where you get that stuff. From what I've been told, I haven't seen this firsthand or anything like that, but I've been told that if you get exhaust fluid in your diesel fuel, that will destroy your fuel system on your diesel pickup. So injection pump and injectors and all that kind of stuff. So you want to make sure you're getting this in the right spot. GM on the pickup trucks, they put their spout for the exhaust fluid fill under the hood on the passenger side firewall. So kind of like back behind the battery and all that. I know some of them in the GM vans, and I know some maybe Ford and Dodge, they put the fill in the fuel door. So that's where that becomes more important. Make sure you're not putting exhaust fluid in the fuel itself. If both of those are right next to each other, make sure you got the right one. The cap is a lot smaller. The filler neck's going to be a lot smaller, and it's got a blue cap and it's going to say DEF on it versus a green cap for diesel fuel. But that's really about it. Pull up a vehicle in all data, late model, probably 3/4 or 1 ton diesel truck, and see if you can't get some specs and fill out that task sheet. And that'll wrap us up for today. We will have the midterm tomorrow, and then we'll go from there. Thanks. So I got this refractometer put right up to the camera on my phone. You can kind of see what we're looking at. So right where the blue and white is, that's where we read the scale. So if this has battery electrolyte in it, so we'd be reading the battery scale on the left. So we're down in the recharge area. If you look at the top right where it says urea, that's where we're going to read the scale for our diesel exhaust fluid. And of course, in the center there, if we're got antifreeze, that's where we would read that. But wherever that break in color is, that's where you read the scale, you pull your number and compare that to specs, and that's really all there is to it. So after this, you just kind of wipe this thing down and put it back in the box, and that's really all there is to it.